Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to welcome you to ACS's next ACS Live event. This week, we'll be looking at community alcohol partnerships, the benefits that they bring, and why retailers should get involved. We're going to have a brief introduction from Kate Winstanley, Director at CAP, before we're joined by Adam Hogwood of Budgeons Broadstairs and Neil Butcher from Kent Trading Standards. And we're going to hear all sorts of insights from across the retail and trading standards side. As you will hear, there's a whole host of benefits for retailers in joining a CAP, and we hope that our discussion today will demonstrate those, answer any questions you have, and also inspire more convenience retailers to get involved. So without further ado, I will pass over to Kate.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. And yes, good afternoon to everybody. I'll try and share my screen now. I've got a short presentation here. CAP, what can CAP do for retailers? I'm going to look particularly at the benefits for the convenience sector, but I'll also give you a short overview of what CAPs are and what the benefits are for everyone. Sorry, I don't seem to be able to move on. Right. Okay, so first of all, what are CAPs? We have launched in 13 years 210 CAPs, and all of those are local partnerships with the aim of reducing underage drinking and the associated harm to communities. The participants or partners of each CAP will vary, but typically they include police, trading standards, all of the retailers within a CAP area, schools, youth services, and any charities that are reaching out to young people, such as Young at Action. The action plans of each CAP are locally managed, and each will be tailored to the problems locally. So it might be, for example, parks that are particularly problematic for underage drinking, housing estates, or there might be a problem with house parties. So each and every action plan will vary, but broadly, CAP activity falls into 3 distinct areas: alcohol education within schools for children, usually for secondary school children, and also advice and information for parents so that they know what the right thing is to do. A big part of every CAP is support and training for every single retailer on Challenge 25 and also refusing proxy sales. So that includes one-on-one support for retailers who might be having particular issues, free signage, free stencils, window vinyls, you name it. We've got all sorts of things to help you to exercise due diligence. The other main activity that CAPs offer is provision of appropriate diversionary activity for youngsters. So in the good old days, that might have been football or go-karting, you know, all sorts of physical activities. During COVID, we've been able to adapt fantastically, and many CAPs offer things via Zoom or Instagram, and you know, it might be yoga, bike maintenance, Harry Potter evenings, etc. So looking particularly at what we offer CAP retail partners, you can see on the screen there one of our lovely pavement stencils. These are chalk pavement stencils and send out a clear message that it's an offence to try and buy for under 18s. So we offer all of these lovely things, that the Challenge 25 posters that you'll be familiar with, and they're all free. Free staff training on refusing underage and proxy sales. And that is not a one-off thing, it's ongoing within the life of a CAP. I think one of the most important aspects of any CAP is that relationship building with police and trading standards. So instead of sort of feeling that you're maybe sort of against each other, it's all about working together to stop a problem. So you become part of a solution as retailers. If you get particular problems with antisocial behaviour, there will be help and support from your community safety partnership or trading standards. And there's lots and lots of good news along the way, and you can share in that positive reputation building for your stall. We're really, really proud of the difference we make, and these figures show the average reductions in harms associated with alcohol and underage drinking. So on average, we see 52% reductions in regular drinking in CAP areas, and that's amongst 13 to 16-year-olds. Big reductions in youth antisocial behaviour, on average 40%. A 77% reduction in young people hanging around stores and asking adults to buy for them. Big reductions, a whopping 90% in residents reporting seeing under 18s drinking in public places, and really, really good improvements in compliancy with Challenge 25 following CAP support and training. So I'll just sort of sum up very quickly the benefits for retail partners. It's really that relationship building with key partners, especially trading standards and police, helping you to prove and demonstrate due diligence, and being confident to do that, really making a difference to reducing antisocial behaviour in and around your stores, so making them much safer places and environments to shop and indeed work. And then just being part of the solution, a trusted partner in improving your local community with really good opportunities for positive PR. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview of what CAP is and what the benefits are for retailers. And I will hand over to Adam, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. Sorry, Eleanor.
Sorry, thanks, Kate. It's a really useful introduction to CAP and a really helpful overview. In the panel discussion that we're going to have now, we're going to unpack some more of those things that Kate has mentioned, looking in more detail at sort of the objectives and the outcomes, what it means to be involved in a CAP, and how retailers can actually go about doing that, as well as the benefits on the ground. So, as I said, we're joined by Adam Hogwood, manager of Rogers Broadstairs, Neil Butcher of Kent Trading Standards, both heavily involved in the success of CAPs in the Kent area. And I'd also just like to remind those watching, please do submit any questions in the Q&A function below, and I will put them to the panel as we go. So firstly, that was a really good overview of sort of what a CAP is. It would be really good to understand on the ground what a CAP is there to do, what it has been there to do, and what the objectives are. So I'm going to go first to Neil and then to Adam. Neil, can you tell us a bit more about what the objectives were of the specific CAP that you've been involved in, and what were the kind of things in the area that you were looking to achieve or to challenge?
Well, thank you, Eleanor. I'm just going to go through now with you. A CAP has 6 core objectives, and I'll go through each one of those with you. So the first is to reduce incidents of alcohol sales to young people in the area. Reduce proxy purchasing, and all your members will know what proxy purchasing is. But just to clarify, that's where young people are asking older people to go and buy age-restricted products for them, such as alcohol and cigarettes. To reduce antisocial behaviour associated with young people's alcohol consumption. To develop a responsible retailing ethos and an effective partnership approach in the CAP area. To increase young people's awareness of the risks associated with drinking alcohol. And finally, to improve the general understanding of safe drinking limits amongst young people and adults. So really, the main successful factors of a CAP are education with young people and the general community and retailers. Communication, that's the key, with all partners and community partners, retailers, everyone, because everyone in a CAP is a team and we all work together. Business engagement, it's important to visit your retailers regularly at least once a month, and your retailers know that they can contact you by email or phone, and I will always get back to my retailers within at least a couple of days if they've got a problem. And if it's something that I can't answer, I'll signpost them to somebody that can. I'll just give you a quick example there. A retailer might have a couple of new members of staff that they want to get trained for their license, and I can put them in touch with the local authority, the correct person to deal with. Diversionary activities and hearing the voice of young people, as Kate mentioned, some of the diversionary activities that we do in different CAPs. And obviously, finally, as a last resort, we'll have to go into some sort of enforcement. And that's the main factors of a successful CAP.
Great, thank you. Adam, some of the sort of issues or objectives that Neil mentioned, were these the kind of issues that you were seeing in the area and in the store? How much of a problem was sort of proxy purchasing and attempted purchases by young people in your store?
I mean, proxy purchasing was an issue in the summer. We typically have a big festival every August. Neil, actually, when we set up the CAP, came to me and he said that that would be a time of year to focus on it. Absolutely spot on. And what we were finding was you'd get youngsters coming in trying to buy a certain product. We'd refuse the sale, and then lo and behold, 5 minutes later, an adult would come in wanting to buy that exact same product, and it would be quite obvious to us that that was a proxy sale. There were times when we've gone outside with that person and seen him talking to the same youth that came in previously, so we knew exactly what was going on. After the CAP was up and running and installed, we had the window vinyls that Kate mentioned, the stencils on the floor outside as well. We found that that was enough to actually deter people from, to give them that sort of moment of clarity, if you like, of sort of thinking twice, oh, okay, it is an offence. It's not just helping these kids out. It's, I am actually doing wrong here. And I'll admit, I was a little bit sceptical at first about the effect that a stencil might have on the floor or anything else. And I was thinking, well, if they're going to do it, they're just going to do it anyway. But the measurable positive effect it had was almost instant. It was quite incredible. I mean, the other things that Neil mentioned there was the relationship with the local authorities as well. And it always helps to work as a team. It was mentioned briefly before that there's a lot of this kind of where at times we feel like we're working against each other when we should all be working together. We've got the same objective. And so working close with each other in these situations, it just helps things along a lot better. And the end result is that everyone has the same interests in mind at the end of it. So yeah, to strengthen those relationships is absolute key to that as well. Yeah.
Neil, so you mentioned some of the sort of activities that you've gone about doing in these areas, and Adam mentioned the stencils as well. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what retailers would experience being part of the CAP? So sort of that training, the stencils, the refusal logs and things like that.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor. So when we start off a CAP, myself, it might be the police licensing officer or the local authority licensing officer. We go around the stores in the CAP, those premises selling alcohol. We give them a welcome letter to read at their convenience. We obviously explain to them that this is all free of charge. There's no onus on them, and a lot of your members will be doing all of this already. We explain that we talk about the importance of having, because one of the main things they must do is your members will have to be have the Challenge 25 system in place with their posters, and most of them will anyway. We go through a very small survey with them, which is about 20-30 questions, which forms part of our data baseline gathering at the beginning of the CAP. So when we review it in a year, we can see the difference it's made. We also explain to them at some point over the next few weeks, month, we will be doing a Challenge 25 test purchase. Now, it's not to catch anyone out. We send somebody then that's in over 18 and somebody, and they're under 25. So it's just to check that the retailer is checking for ID such as a passport, driving license, citizen card, or approved proof of age. Now, I'll just give you an example. In one area, when we first did this, 12 out of the 14 premises in the CAP area unfortunately failed that test. Now, because of all the good work we all did together in the CAP, like Adam says, it's all working together. We reviewed that some 12 months later after the CAP had been in progress, and all of them passed. So it was actually absolutely brilliant result there. Now, the other thing that we can help with, I don't know if you can see this, but in Kent, we have a very small underage sales pack, which I give the retailers. And a lot of them have got their own underage sales refusals if they've got it in a book or whatever, that's fine. But we've just got some other examples in that pack of some pro formas of the refusals page that they can use. The retailers as well, we fully appreciate that some of your members may have been in the retail trade for 20, 30 years or more, and they know everything, but we always make sure, and they must have something written down to say that they've had some training. So in this pack, it's good practice to just read it. As I say, it's not many pages, and there's a pro forma again in there to sign, and that forms part of their due diligence. So everything's in there. And if there's something that the retailer doesn't understand, myself, one of my other colleagues, we can all help them. And there's lots of support that we can do. As Kate mentioned, we do some free training for them. So we'll arrange with, I'll give you an example. The last one that I did, we had Waitrose. We did some training at Waitrose in Ramsgate for the Ramsgate and Broadstairs CAP. So they came down. And we did some informal training, and they got a little certificate at the end, and we had a good question and answer session. That went really well. In another one that I did with Gillian from CAP, we did one in an area. Now, one of the members on that panel, unfortunately, failed one of the Challenge 25 test purchases. He came to the training. The training lasts about an hour. The next time we did a Challenge 25 test purchase, he passed. Went back in and gave the retailer the feedback. He said, that training that you gave us, Jill, it was brilliant. I remembered everything you said, and they've got it in their refusal book. It's brilliant. As Kate mentioned, some of the other things that we can do, you saw a picture there of the stencil. Now, there was also a picture of the stencil that we use in the chalk outside the premises. Now that lasts, we normally do that at key times of the year. So that will be around when the young people are on half terms, summer, etc. A couple of my CAP shops, they mentioned to me that they'd really like can we have something more permanent? So I went back to Gillian and suggested that some of the retailers are asking for that. And that's where we came up with this idea. So some of the retailers will put that in their window, in their fridges, where they've got their alcohol, and they really like that. And also the other thing that's really good, as Kate mentioned there's lots of posters. So you'll see behind me, that's an example of, we get 2 pull-ups in each CAP. And what I did with Adam there in his store, over the Folk Week that they have in Broadstairs, where they get thousands of people come to the town, I suggested to Adam it would be a really good idea if we could get these pull-ups up in his alcohol area in his store, and straight away Adam said, yeah, that'd be lovely. So we went and put those up in the store at the time. The other thing CAP do that's really brilliant, at certain times of the year, so at Christmas, Halloween, when the World Cup's on, any major sort of events like that, they produce these posters. So I speak to either Gillian at CAP or Matthew at CAP, and I ask for some posters, and I get these sent out to the stores, and they get these put up in their windows of their shop. So I can tell you from doing this role now for some time, the retailers that I engage with, they absolutely love a CAP, and I would really urge you, if you haven't got a CAP in your area, is to speak to your trading standards department or your licensing officer. Hopefully you should have contacts for them, and express an interest, and can we have one? Because it really will help you, and it will help your business, and I can't recommend it enough.
It's really good to hear. I want to go to Adam now to hear some of that sort of personal experience. Neil touched on a whole host of things, but particularly that sort of Challenge 25 and the test purchasing experience. Do you have sort of personal experience to share in the store from how that process worked for you?
Yeah, we are familiar with Neil's testing in store, yeah. We, just to go back a little step, is that we actually currently do a yearly online course as well, which is separate from CAP, but it's age-restricted sales and other bits and pieces. We also follow the Challenge 25. So we've got training in place, but it's almost a difference between theory and practice. So we've got the theory there where we're doing all the learning courses, you know, and you get your multiple choices. And then there's no substitute for being able to actually have a test purchase in store and also give the feedback as well. I'm not too proud to say that we actually failed the first one that Neil came in and actually did with us. We sat down, we had a chat with the member of staff, and like Neil says, it's not that kind of, you know, we're here to catch you out. It's to help us. It's always in a constructive way. And we sat down with a member of staff, and you could almost see her point of view why she actually okayed it, but that's a different story. But it was now looking in the refusals log, ever since that happened, and that's going back a good few years now, I guarantee that the member of staff with the most entries in that refusals log will be her, because she was talked to about it. It was explained to her properly, and she had that experience of it. She took it to heart, and she responded well. And yeah, she's absolutely spot on now, rather than other ways of going about it can be quite negative. And can be almost aggressive in the way of sort of like, well, you know, don't do it again. Because it was explained in such a way. Yeah, it certainly had the desired effects. And I think that's one of the big benefits, to have that reassurance that your team are actually performing better and better with that kind of feedback done in that way.
Yeah, it's really good to hear. I think that will be one of the sort of key takeaways from this, is that positive relationship with trading standards, that sort of pragmatic and helpful approach to achieving compliance is something really positive there. Kate, I want to come to you. Neil touched briefly on sort of how to get involved with a CAP. I want to go to those sort of practical questions now. We do have a question on the chat from Alison. As a business, we are part of a handful of CAPs, but these have come about as I have been contacted centrally. I have previously expressed an interest for us to be involved in more across the country, but have not got traction. How do I find out about all the CAP areas covered so I can review where we have stores and seek to nominate one of the team to become involved?
Well, Alison, we'd love to. We can share with you all of the CAP areas that are active across the country now, and we will have a list of whether your stores are in those or not, because we have a list of all of the licensed premises within each CAP. And it does happen on a local basis, but I think the key would be to introduce you to all of our team of regional advisors, and then they will make sure that that you're linked in, you know, as and when, if a new CAP launches, for example, and just make sure we can make the introductions that way. But it would be really good to have your support. And as we said earlier, if there is a store which is experiencing particular issues with antisocial behaviour, then we'd love to look at, you know, sort of look at doing some research to set up new CAPs. So if there's an active CAP, we can absolutely link you in, you know, straight away. If there isn't, we can look at setting up a partnership to support in those areas.
Okay, that's great. So hopefully if there is a local CAP in your area and you can know about it, you can get in touch with Trading Standards, and if there isn't, you can get in touch with CAP team and we can get that organised for you. So now I just want to talk about some of those impacts that we've heard about. So Kate sort of touched on this in your presentation. Just remind us of some of those sort of figures of impact. So in terms of what you're seeing in CAPs across the country, not just in the areas that we've talked about so far.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the we have an evaluation framework. So we do baseline surveys of school children, of residents, and also we survey retailers in an area. So we know what the level of problems is before the CAP starts. And then we do further surveys, usually 18 months or 2 years, sometimes a few more. So we can really see what difference CAPs make. And I think typically we see 40% reductions in antisocial behaviour. That's actually from police and crime data. Resident surveys and surveys of retailers show that there is an average 77% reduction in young people hanging around outside stores, sort of asking people to proxy purchase or buy alcohol on their behalf. As Adam has mentioned, big improvements in compliance with Challenge 25. So I think Neil achieved 100% compliance. The average is about 80%, which is still really good. And then I think the most exciting finding of all, because it's an absolute measure of young people's behaviour, if you like, is that in 2 years, there is an average 52% reduction overall in 13 to 16-year-olds drinking alcohol regularly. So that is far and away sort of above the national decline in drinking. It's a really rapid result. And I mean, it means that young people are not drinking alcohol, which is the holy grail. It's what we all want to see. So we're really, really proud of that. And it's something we're quite often quoted on.
Great. And I want to sort of look at how these impacts help address some of the challenges that convenience retailers are experiencing. We know from our experience, our conversations with retailers, but also ACS's crime report, that refusing a sale or challenging a customer for ID is a top trigger for abuse. Adam, I'm going to come to you. How has being part of a CAP helped to sort of better prepare for some of those more challenging encounters?
Confidence, I think. If you give the staff the right knowledge and the confidence to carry it out, that they're doing the right thing, and then they've got the support of the signage around as well, so it's that retention in people's minds. They might have just, you know, subliminally taken it or whatever, but it does have that little effect. But if you give your staff the confidence, like I say, of that they are doing the right thing and the right way of applying it as well, you find that there's much less hostility, there's less aggression towards them. It just, if they learn to diffuse the situation, is what Neil certainly helped us to learn properly. Yeah, it becomes almost a lot of nothing. You know, you're always going to get the kind of the half-cut types coming in and trying to buy another drink and another drink, and yeah, sometimes for some of our staff, that can be quite daunting. It can be quite intimidating as well. But the change in them after they've had training it is quite something to see. It really is. And then it just becomes second nature. So probably equally the biggest thing I think to come out of this CAP for me, from the shop level, is that the staff to have the confidence to actually not put themselves in danger, not put the business in any kind of financial risk either, with any fines or anything else, and not risking losing your license or anything over it, and keeping all your staff safe. So it is a massive win-win for us. It really is.
That's really good to hear. Neil, I'm going to come to you next. Do you find that once a CAP is up and running in an area and we're starting to see these benefits, sort of the ones that Adam has mentioned and Kate as well, is there a risk of these problems with antisocial behaviour and proxy purchasing and things like that simply moving to a neighbouring area?
There is always that possibility, Eleanor, and we know that that has happened. And if that is an issue, we can always extend the CAP, because we'll have our map where the CAP's going to be, and it's pretty fluid. If we find that just outside that cap, the young people are going to that shop or that area of the town, maybe, because sometimes a cap might not cover the whole town. It might cover just a certain part of the town, and we can extend it. Likewise, if we've got a problem that's come to our attention in another town next to it, we will look at putting a cap there. So we're pretty fluid. We can move the cap around. It's never set in stone. And we have regular meetings with partners, retailers, every sort of 3 months or so. And sometimes even sooner before we launch the cap. And we'll look at all that data and we can move it around. That's always the beauty of the cap. It's a brilliant project that we can do together.
Yeah. And Kate, I'm going to come to you as well. What are some of the sort of wider activities that CAP is doing to sort of mitigate this across the whole area with sort of younger people as well?
Yeah, so I think as Neil said there, we typically do sort of, it's often a pilot in one particular area where there might be sort of higher levels of problems, but as the CAP develops, there's sort of a mushrooming effect. It will often spread. So across a whole borough or a bigger area, or if it's displacing to a town nearby, there will often be a secondary CAP that follows. That's a very typical thing that we do. But I would say also that the diversionary activity and the schools work that we do. So children often will attend a school which is over quite a big catchment area. So by the alcohol education work and the diversionary offer, we will actually be capturing quite a big number of kids who live across a wider area anyway. So it's those two approaches.
Yeah, great, sort of coming at it from both sides there.
Yeah.
So I guess it wouldn't be a webinar during this time without mentioning the situation that we're currently in. I do have a question on the chat from Laura. I work for a local authority within CSP and will be starting a new CAP. With the impact of COVID, our trading standards department have decided that they cannot take part in this time. Schools and licensees are under a great deal of pressure with COVID restrictions. Is it worth holding off beginning the CAP in our area for a few months, or can you offer any advice about adapting to these challenges? I think I could probably go to Neil first if you're sort of working on CAPs during this time, and then probably Kate.
Yeah, thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for your question. I completely understand with that, and we've all had to change the way we work with the COVID. That's something that if the local authority may be deciding they're going to have to put it on hold, that might be something they might just have to do at the moment, I'm afraid. But what we're doing in Kent at the moment, we're doing virtual visits over the phone. So what I'm doing, I'm ringing up some of the businesses and going through like I would do in a normal visit face to face. I'm asking them how many refusals have they had over the last few months. Is all their training up to date? Have they had any issues with young people coming in trying to purchase alcohol? So we can go through a sort of a chat with them on the phone for 10 minutes, let them know that we're still there. And if there's anyone that they want me to signpost them to, I'll get them to call them. But it depends. I know that some of the local authorities have got some other pressing work with COVID at the moment that they're having to deal with. But it might just worth still touch base with them and see if there's any way that we can do something differently, or if not, we could do some virtual visits, virtual meetings on Zoom or whatever, or Teams, because that's what we're doing. Certainly in Kent, we're still continuing with the work, but we're just doing it a different way. So we're having obviously virtual meetings, virtual the phone calls that we're doing, and hopefully you can move that forward.
Is there anything that you would add to that as well?
So if I could just mention that, as Neil says, a lot of work is going on in spite of COVID. It's just been done differently and virtually. So this morning, for example, we launched a CAP up in Skelmersdale in Lancashire, which has been obviously one of the worst affected areas. They've been meeting sort of monthly by Zoom anyway, and they were ready to launch. The schools have already done their baseline surveys, you know, schools are back. And there was a huge amount of energy. PCSOs are able to go out next week and deliver posters to retailers. It's Alcohol Awareness Week. And we've got another launch in Glastonbury next week, and another one coming up in Millom, up in Cumbria. So I think it's just a matter of working in different ways, but it shouldn't be a barrier to getting on with things.
Yeah. Okay, thanks guys. I think I'll go for one final question to everybody. So as a final takeaway for our audience, I'll come to Neil and then to Kate and then to Adam. What do you think, or what would you say is the #1 benefit of engaging with a community alcohol partnership for retailers?
I think it's working as a team, knowing that you've got people there at the end of a phone or an email that can help you. The support that you will get, your business will get, all the posters. And if you have, like, certainly your business might have issues in it, well, you probably will, in an evening on a Friday night or something, we can offer support, come and do some stenciling then, put some stands up. And at the end of the day, it's one big team. And I'd urge any of your members, please, to have a look at the Community Alcohol Partnership website. There's lots of information on there. There's lots of good news stories in the news section where you can see some of the great work that we've all done together in different CAPs in the country. But it's really, really good. It really is a good project. Great.
Thanks, Kate.
Great. Well, I'd probably say that getting involved means that you're part of the solution. Sort of what Neil said in a slightly different way, but it's just everybody together can make that real difference to making your community a better place and your business a safer and more welcoming place for your customers.
Great. And Adam, the #1 benefit for your store?
I'd say it's got to be the support, knowing that someone is out there to help you when you need it, and also the safety for your business and your team as well.
Okay. Great. Okay, so that brings us to a close. I'd like to say a massive thank you again to all of our panellists, Kate, Adam and Neil. Thank you very much for talking with us today and sharing your insights. I think that everybody will agree there are a whole host of benefits in being involved. I hope that the audience have found this useful and that you will now consider getting involved with a CAP in your local area, and that you know how to if there isn't one there. The session has been recorded, so we can share this with those who couldn't tune in live. And I'd just like to thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you all at the next ACS Live event.